personal reputation is important for me. What I stand for, the values I stand for. So my strength was in the ability to see the big picture, and yet at the same time I dabble into the details because details matter to me. The future has no data. You need to spot trends or spot early developments in the economy. My mother's profession as a nurse also shaped my desire to help others.
Hello everyone, today we are here with Alexandar Williams, one of the best visionaries of United Arab Emirates. Alexandar, please introduce yourself to our audience so that everyone understands who we are meeting today.
Thank you very much, Max. My name is Alexandar Williams. I come from Singapore and I'm of mixed Chinese-Indian parentage. So I've got the best of both worlds, the Chinese world and the Indian world. Born in 1965, worked in Singapore for many years. I came to Dubai 10 years ago, and at the age of my early 40s, and it was a chance that I could not refuse. I was headhunted to help Dubai develop the small and medium enterprise policies, and I thought, it was a great chance for me to share my expertise and develop the talent for this new role in this organization. And as they say, the rest is history. So for the last 10 years, it's been a beautiful, wonderful journey. It added 10 more years of my work experience of almost 28 years of working. And I told myself that because the rewards are very good, as in the non-financial rewards are very good. Makes me happy, and I'm very comfortable doing what I do for the next 10, 20 years, for as long as I can contribute. That's my mentor, my vision for the next 10, 20 years.
So now you are shaping, like I've been to several of the seminars and conferences where you were not just a speaker, but one of the most important people in general that influenced the conference at all. So how did you manage to come to that point? Where did all your stories start from?
Well, as they say, when you age and you mature, you discover certain strengths that you have and certain weaknesses. So my strength was in the ability to see the big picture, and yet at the same time I dabble into the details because details matter to me. So as I went through my life, my career and my life, I realized that as I grew older, I was good at advising and giving guidance to others. And also at the same time, I was also good at receiving and guidance from others and listening to others. I think that's very important because you have to learn from each other. And to the point that now I get a lot of requests to shape conference agendas, themes, conversations, to create that spark, forums, and structure conversations and discussions. So I've reached that stage where I'm able to see what really works and what would really excite the audience with regards to conversations in the space of SME development, policy development, and the future of future economy of Dubai.
This is the Alexandar that is of today. What was your childhood like? Tell us your story that stands from your very early days. Where did you come from? What was your family like? How many sisters, brothers maybe you had? Tell us about your parents. Were they wealthy, poor? Just let us know.
Well, my parents came from two diverse backgrounds. One was a Chinese and one was an Indian. And in the 50s, that was a taboo in the Singapore context to have both ethnic groups interact, let alone intermarry. So it was a big challenge for them. But I think that very challenge shaped my perception of how I should be treating people of different backgrounds. So that profound respect for anyone who of who you are, regardless of your background, is something ingrained in me. And I came from a family of four, a Christian family in Singapore. A family of four. I'm the third in from the top, and I grew in a very relatively poor family, I would say, and my father was a clerk in the telecoms industry in Singapore. My mother was a nurse. So my mother's profession as a nurse also shaped my desire to help others as a nurse. So they got married, 4 kids. In 1970, my father passed away. So as a widow, she had to raise 4 kids, and for that I admire her, because women in her late 20s raising 4 kids with no one to help, and she was a sole breadwinner. So that also shaped my perception that we need to be independent and always provide for a rainy day, because you never know what will happen to you. So I studied very hard in school, and I told myself that was the only competitive advantage I had when I was young, to study hard, to make it to university, and to make sure that I will be able to afford almost anything I want with my salary, my first salary. And I studied hard, progressed, went to the London School of Economics to do my master's from my employer scholarship, and continued my career in policy making and SME development. And here I am today. So you can say that my formative years in life were shaped very much by my childhood, my circumstances, and the values I hold dear today.
So, to be a person who shapes the future of a futuristic city like Dubai, what kind of education, background, like information you should possess to be able to at least try to do it?
Well, I think there's no particular program that you can be trained for to develop the future, because the future has no data. You need to spot trends or spot early developments in the economy, in the industry, in what people are doing, in the startup environment. So a person who wants to be in this future industry or the future ecosystem needs to read a lot, needs to observe a lot, needs to have conversations a lot with people and know what's happening in the world. And Max, let me tell you that a lot of things that are happening in the world we do not see, we do not know.
That's true.
Yeah, and the internet or the books can only tell you so much. You need to make your own investigations, and therefore one of the criteria I look out for when for such positions is that your curiosity levels. You need to be extremely curious and innovative in your curiosity. Where to find the information, who is doing what, because a lot of information are really private and confidential. You need to find out the intelligence. So that is what I'm trying to build in my team, to be able to make sense of the future. We call it sense making.
Get the #1 step-by-step guide on how to become your own boss in the UAE. You will learn how to start your own business in the UAE. Just click the link in the description below this video and follow this link. This is your time to start. Click the link below this video. Bam! Okay, so we are talking about future. We are talking about business. What do you think are the points current businessmen should focus on right now to be able to compete in future business?
I think there are a few things that a businessman in any part of the city or any part of the world should focus on, and that is pay close attention to your customers. This message was important 10, 20, 30 years ago, but continues to be extremely important now. Because in business, as in all dimensions of life, we are facing a new generation. All right, I'm I would say I'm the pre-millennial generation. You are the millennial generation, and your needs are different. So I would say that the demand side for business is changing. Customers are expecting more experience. They want quick service. They want efficient service. They want digital service. They want a combination of digital, virtual, and physical services.
Right.
So if any businessman, irrespective of the sector they are in, particularly in dealing with retailers or B2B, you need to have that new interface. So if you are not into that mindset, chances are that you find it challenging to continue and sustain your business. Right. So this is how I advise my current businessmen.
What is your goal for the next 5 years?
Well, my goal for the next 5 years is to continue to develop myself, and whatever programs and initiatives I've started now, there will be some outcomes in the next 5 years career-wise. Personal-wise, I would like to see myself continue to advise, to coach, mentor, anyone who wants to be coached or mentored. Okay. So it's a continuous process of trying to improve myself in the next 5 years.
How to come to you and become your, so to say, trainee, or I don't know how can I name this person who is seeking for mentorship?
Well, for me, it's about word of mouth. I mean, if anybody knows someone who wants to meet me or talk to me, I mean, I was open for a coffee chat, in my office or outside office. So I don't think I'm very hard to get. I mean, I'm quite easy to find in Dubai. Yeah.
All right. What do you think about cryptocurrency, about blockchain, about the role of UAE in that?
I think that this trends or these technology trends is going to impact the world fundamentally in the next 5 to 10 years. We still do not know enough, or different people have different expertise and who know something about this, but not everyone has equal knowledge. But like the internet in the 1990s, this diffusion of knowledge would be increased, and therefore a lot of adopters of cryptocurrency or user currency, cryptocurrencies and blockchain will take on a more pervasive role in society. So for me, this is something that is going to be very impactful globally, and the rules and regulations will need to change, mindsets will need to change, and the whole ecosystem will need to be recreated for this 2 or 3 technologies to happen.
Did you buy any cryptocurrency for yourself?
I considered, but I did not. I didn't felt that I have enough information.
I got it.
And therefore the risk was not worth it.
What is more important than money for you?
I think personal reputation is important for me. What I stand for, the values I stand for, and the peace that derive from these values are more important than anything else.
Dubai or Singapore?
Both. Why?
Yeah, why?
Well, for Dubai, the reasons is quite different. It's more entrepreneurial, more opportunistic, and I enjoy that kind of environment. For Singapore, it's more because of my childhood, the reason why I have my connections, my social connections, and my upbringing and my values. So both cities are equally important to me.
Who is the best businessman in the history of the world?
In my mind, he may be a cliche, but I think Bill Gates is, to me, the most inspiring businessman, because post his business, he has set up the whole philanthropy movement of giving back to society.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the most noble thing a businessman can do.
What is the most unbelievable request you have ever received?
The most unbelievable request I think I came across in Singapore is when my neighbor asked me to bake a cake for his dog.
Oh, really?
So it was an unusual request when I was in my teenage years. So I will never forget that the situation where I said, "Oh, please."
So was it a successful story?
Yeah, it was a successful story because I didn't tell you that part of my hobbies. I love to cook and I love to bake.
Really?
Yes, I baked a lot of cakes for myself and for my neighbors. So when I was young, my mother taught me to cook, and as part of survival. And my neighbors got to know it, and she said, "Oh, can you bake a cake for my dog's birthday?" So that was a very unusual request.
Nice. What do you think? How will business transform in future?
I agree with most of the textbooks or conventional wisdom that says that every company now must be a data company or a technology company, but it depends on where you want to hit the right spot, and that spot changes every time. I would say I would not like to tell a businessman what business you should go into. It should be your heart. It should be your passion. There's no crowded space. It's how you make a difference of that space in that market. It's how you execute that business. It's how you make sense of your passion and you connect with the customer. That makes a difference. So you can be selling jewelry to clothes to a service. It's all the same. How you reflect and you make your customer the central point of your business. I think once you have that, chances that you would succeed.
All right. Dubai SME and Dubai economy. How they transformed you and how they can transform the businessmen who are trying to do business in the UAE.
Yeah, so a very good question, because when I came to Dubai SME, I had so much experience in Singapore developing SMEs. I love talking to CEOs, I love talking to entrepreneurs, because if you don't talk to them, you will not know how to set your policies or your programs. So when I came to Dubai SME, I realized that there was a lot of work to be done. I would say that any work that you do is a marathon without a finishing line, because you need to evolve. So when Dubai SME hired me, I was very excited to look at what are the gaps in the market, gaps in the organization, and as well as gaps in the industry of that market. Right. So I realized that when I came, Dubai was thriving, it was booming, and I realized that there's more potential that Dubai can do for the SMEs. Because in any city you go, what drives the economy is the SMEs, small businesses like what you run and develop. And if you don't take care of the SMEs, the economy will be challenged. So a lot of economists say that if the SME sector grows, the economy grows.
Right.
So with that in mind, I decided that I need to do a few things in Dubai SME. One is to define what an SME is. And that was my proud moment, because I hired a consultant to help shape the understanding of what Dubai SME definition is. And of course, the challenge was to get data, as in everywhere else. So, but we managed to work very closely with the Department of Statistics to develop this first definition, which I'm very proud of, and of which the other Emirates decided to also look at our definition and benchmark. So that was a proud moment, and I decided to do a lot of SME customer service to find out their needs in different sectors and industries, because I believe that no SME operates the same in all sectors. Every sector drives the SME to a different market orientation. So because of that, I developed different industry studies and different SME market opportunities in different sectors, and that was key. So I gave a new insight to the Dubai SME leadership and DD leadership, who decided to take a good look at my study and what we can do. And the strategic intent of my work as a policy and strategy director in Dubai SME was to build the strategy. There was a story behind my strategy in the last 7 years. Once you have the definition, you can then find out the size of the SME sector, the orientation, and then you can go on to develop new programs. So it was a building block strategy. Did industry studies, and then I could then run the Dubai SME 100 program, which I'm very proud of.
So this is your invention?
Yes, I proposed to our CEO that we need a program to recognize who the top 100 SMEs in Dubai were. We need to tell a story, because telling powerful stories is one way to inspire. And every CEO who runs an SME has a story to tell. All right. And I told my CEO that most of the time, SME CEOs love to hear the CEO, the stories of the other CEO. All right, because you have different experiences to share. And I told my CEO that sometimes the CEO doesn't like to hear from the government officials. So I tried to create a forum between CEOs and CEOs talking together in Dubai through Dubai SME 100. Yeah. So these CEOs of the SME 100 were very receptive to the idea of interacting with one another, sharing ideas, because sometimes when you have a good business, you tend to keep to yourself. But I convinced them that in order to grow, you need to network and learn from each other. Yeah. And so that was the third sort of building block for Dubai SME 100. And therefore, I got to know so many CEOs, and therefore you know what is happening at the ground. Following that, I look at policies. What are the policies in Dubai that stifle SMEs? So I look at the IP, intellectual property regime, was also a challenge to many SMEs. I look at the equity environment, because in the financing environment, so they face a lot of challenges in the banking sector. They face a lot of challenges in raising funds, right? They also face a lot of challenges in management issues. So the question we asked was, how can we facilitate conversations in this area? So we worked with the banks, we understood what the banks were looking for, and tried to match their requirements to how we can improve the SMEs' capabilities. So I launched a corporate governance program for SMEs. So during that time, there were a lot of people were saying, why do SMEs need corporate governance? I told my CEOs that if the SME can build his financial story from day one, investors will look to him. And usually a business story, when you ask, how is your business? You're usually asking, how's the financials behind your business? So every SME story is a financial story.
That's why we are always trying to ask people to reveal at least figures of what is their business like, because in our, like in Russian countries, in CIS countries, we are very keen to share it. We do not hide it. We want to say, look, I earned $1 million in 1 year, you know, and I want to help others do the same. I don't want to hide it and say it, but this is like cultural differences, so you need to think about it as well, because Dubai is a big pot of different cultures, and so many opportunities are given to all who come here. And when you say about, look, this guy earned this guy earned that, it can inspire, and it can drive Dubai's businesses, Dubai SMEs, it can drive economy, and everyone will be happy. So yeah, but again, whenever we speak with someone, also I'm trying to say to all my guests, look, please share at least some figures to our audience, because it will be very interesting. Some of them agree, some of them don't, but of course it's private thing, I cannot insist, but it would be good for all the people, all the viewers of ours to know such figures. And I always, please guys, share these figures, do not be afraid, or at least say rough figures, so to inspire others.
In fact, one of the conditions for SME 100 is that they must share their 3-year audited financials. So it was in itself a very challenging requirement for many of them in Dubai SME, in the Dubai SME context, especially after the post-financial crisis in 2008. So 2011, when I first ran the program, there was a bit of trust factor. And we say that these figures are important for us to decide on the size of your company and therefore your qualification for SME 100. Thankfully, the culture slowly changed among the SME sector, and those SMEs, whether in the mainland or free zones, decided to participate in this program because they know the value. They know that they would get advice, capability development. We will arrange a lot of service providers to help them on a pro bono basis, and if they found value, they would pay. Because we say that, you know, sometimes when you get good advice, you should be able to compensate the advisor or the consultant. So I think that culture slowly took up. So I decided to run the SME 100 program, and therefore now there is a culture of SMEs wanting to tell the stories. You have the SME magazines, SME Advisor, SME Middle East, Entrepreneur. And I think Dubai SME kind of like fed the content to these magazines who were looking for stories, because we hear a lot of family businesses and big corporates always on the face of magazines. Now we have SME CEOs in the cover of magazines because they have a story to tell. And I hope to think that Dubai SME helped create that story and inspiration for many SMEs in Dubai and the region.
If three biggest events in the UAE you would recommend anyone to attend, or a businessman to attend, or future potential entrepreneur to attend, what are these three biggest events?
Yeah, so I've attended a lot of events in Dubai for the last 7 to 10 years, but I think three events which I always felt that I have to go every year was the GITEX Technology Week, organized by Dubai World Trade Center, the annual blockchain conference, stroke IoT, and the third one is the manufacturing conference that Dubai government with a partner usually organizes. The reason is that because these three conferences always show me the new trends and developments that businesses are learning about. So it's a frontier for me.
A soldier who doesn't want to become a general is a bad soldier. What do you think about businessmen? A businessman who doesn't want to become a billionaire or millionaire is a bad businessman?
No. To each his own, I believe. There are businessmen who want to just break even or just do a certain business that he's happy with to pay his bills, his income, to grow incrementally. There are other businessmen who are very ambitious. They start a business to sell their business, and they have a different inspiration, motivation, and intention. So I think I respect whatever intention you have in the business world. There's no good or bad. The bad or the good is being perceived by the evaluator or the judge.
When was the last time you rode this beautiful metro?
Probably a couple of weeks back.
Okay.
And I ride the metro for various reasons. One is because of necessity, convenience, and of course being a person that likes to observe. I always feel that observing the ground and what's happening in everyday situations is the best education for you. You learn about the people in the train, their behaviors, you observe their actions. To me, this is the raw material for data.
Okay. You are participating in lots of conferences and exhibitions. Do people ask you to make a selfie with them?
Yes, occasionally. Not only at conferences, but sometimes even in the malls when I do dress up a little bit. They want to ask me about my fashion interests and this and this sort of like helps them to buy the right stuff or to say where do I get it, and then they want to get it. And of course during conferences when I speak, sometimes they want to take a selfie with me, which I'm very happy to oblige.
Which is the best city in the UAE?
Dubai, of course.
The worst ever decision you made in business or in life?
I think the worst decision I've made in life was to listen too much to a financial advisor. I listened to him and I released some funds for him to manage, but I didn't do my due diligence on him.
Right.
Yeah, but so far to this day it is working out okay, but there were painful moments that I made a wrong decision.
What was the happiest moment in your life?
The happiest moment in my life was when I was given a management position in the company. For the first time, the CEO trusted me to manage a team, and that was a wonderful experience. It was scary, but it was the most wonderful experience because that set the tone for my career for the next 20 years.
I want to participate in Dubai SMEs. Like, Many of our audience are current businessmen, future businessmen. They want to be part of this big event and of this big family. How we can do it? Where we need to go? What we need to do?
Well, I mean, Dubai SME, I understand that they are resuming the SME 100 program next year. You can go to the website to check any updated information, or you can call them. Right. The criteria I'm not sure it will be the same. Probably you have to adapt it. Mm-hmm. But I think the intention and the thoughts behind the program will still be there. That you need to have a 3-year record, mm-hmm. financial record. You need to have a dedicated management team. Mm-hmm. You need to have at least X number of revenue, and that will shift. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we actually kind of like say that there's a bit above 100 million, below 50 million. So there's some sort of categories. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm sure if your company or any company wants to be in the program, Dubai SME will be so happy to advise you on how you can participate in the next cycle.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great. E-commerce in Dubai, in your opinion, how developed it is and where it is going?
Yeah. So my view about e-commerce, it depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking from an economic perspective, mm-hmm. As an economic planner, I think there's a lot of potential that Dubai can develop its e-commerce economy. Mm-hmm. Okay, I say e-commerce and define as any business that transacts digitally cross borders, because you could be a digital company but you may not be transacting digitally. But so e-commerce is you do your transactions, and your business model is based on selling your business, your products or services over using the internet. Very simple. Yeah. My view is that there's a lot of potential for Dubai to be the e-commerce hub for the world, because we are already a trade hub, we are already a logistics hub.
We have the ground, the basics.
We have the cargo hub. So now it's just developing the digital economy or the e-commerce economy over the next few years. I think we have a window of opportunity to do that. From the businessman's point of view, I think they do still face some challenges in setting up their e-commerce business. As a merchant, of course, the last 10 years I've seen a lot of support from the banks, from the authorities in trying to help them to develop the e-commerce business. But I think the startup culture for e-commerce business is slowly developing. There are still challenges in trying to manage the security requirements of of the authorities. For example, you must have a lot of checks and balances to prevent fraud, to prevent cyber security challenges. So I think that could be ironed out. And of course, the regulators must also, the telco regulators must also make it affordable from the broadband perspective. I think there is a lot of room for improvement in the cost competitiveness of broadband that is going to fuel e-commerce industries in the next few years.
So there is a big potential. Like
there is a potential.
If a person now is watching us and thinking, what should I do? Think about e-commerce. Maybe it will be something that will help you change your life, and it will be obviously in demand in future, because we see how like digitalizing our life is, how much is digitalized currently. And I think there will be always more and more gadgets, telephones, laptops, who will be helping us make as little clicks to achieve something, get something. And of course, this is a big opportunity for all the entrepreneurs to take this niche.
Because when you set up, when you want to promote e-commerce, you need to promote the ecosystem with the e-commerce. Right. For example, I think the government now is very positive in trying to promote e-payments. So when you promote e-payments, you need to build the e-payments ecosystem. The different players coming together. There needs to be seamless integration, not in just cross borders, but also globally. Right. All right. So, for example, in Singapore, we have Alibaba, Alipay, and Alipay is everywhere. It's pervasive. So literally, when you check into the hotel, you don't need to use your credit card. You use Alipay, taxis, vendors, groceries. You just use Alipay or any alternative payments without carrying cash. So I think going cashless, going paperless goes hand in hand with e-commerce, the e-commerce mindset in the city's economy. So I think the Dubai government is very positive. They are working towards that, and I'm very pleased to be also shaping that future.
Right. You were a part of Dubai SME department for quite a long time. You met hundreds of people who are entrepreneurs, who are businessmen, who are investors. What do you think they all have in common? Maybe what qualities would young entrepreneurs who are watching us right now, who are still deciding whether to become an entrepreneur or a businessman or an investor or not, what would you say are the best qualities, the necessary qualities, the required qualities they should have, they should maybe grow in themselves to become successful?
Well, if you talk about in the Dubai context, one of the key traits or the characteristics I see a lot of Dubai SME CEOs have is that they took the risk. They had a risk-taking mentality, which was very admirable, especially coming from Singapore. I noticed that in Singapore, the risk-taking attitude was much higher. They took risks, but in this part of the world, there was a bit of a cautiousness. But I think that is changing. So whenever I talk to any investor or SME business owner in Dubai in my early years in Dubai SME in 2008, I found that they were always very cautious about the investment that they have to make. And one of the key reasons why I've concluded based on my own conclusions that because they did not understand the market. So you need to understand your customers. You need to understand your market. Why are you developing a business to serve who? Because you develop a business not to earn profit but to serve something. All right. The money is secondary. So they were always thinking that how to invest profitably. I said no. You need to find your market first, and you develop your business model or your market. If you fail, take it as a lesson. So I came up with the concept. I told them that you need to take calculated risk. What do you mean by calculated risk? Calculated risk means you try to have as much information as possible about the market and your own instincts. Once you are 70% sure, go for it. Because once you are 100% sure, maybe you lost that motivation or something goes wrong. Once you're 70% sure, go for it.
So we were talking about the data. So a lot depends on data, on the information that you actually have, analyze, and rely your decisions on. Alexander, what are your information resources? What do you read? What do you watch?
Well, there are certain news feeds I read. For example, I'm a staple of BBC News, the Singapore News, the Straits Times, the Channel News Asia.
So you watch everything or just particular programs?
I tend to watch everything. I'm a watcher of anything that is newsy. It could be global news, it can be home news, it can be news of human interest, personal interest, business interest, even sports interest. Because every report has a story to tell. Right. So whenever I read a news piece, I always ask myself, why is this reported? What goes into the mind of a producer? What goes into the mind of the director of the news? Because I ask very deep questions. Why is this news important and why is it taking airtime? So I always ask these deep questions, and I always ask my audience when I'm mentoring entrepreneurs, why is it that this broadcaster is putting this news out? Because of some interest. So that's one source of data. So for me, the story behind the story is important. So this data that comes to me, because you see the pictures, it's visual data, it's verbal data, it's also numbers, it's also facts and figures. So data comes to you unstructured. My challenge is how do I process that information and data to make sense, to make a decision. So like businessmen, I always tell the businessmen, do your research. When I say do your research, I don't mean read. I say you can just go out to the streets and observe. Yeah. Observation is very important, right? That's why observation plus talking to people, you get all the data points, which is better than sometimes when you read from the market report. Because by observations, you can profile your customers on the spot, on what they need and what they do not need.
What would be your recommendations for, maybe not for businessmen and entrepreneurs, just for regular people to read? Like you said, BBC. What are the channels? Maybe newspapers, maybe some local newspapers.
Yeah, I think most local dailies offer good news, but sometimes there are different types of news. There's news that they just reported. There's also the commentary. Right. There's also editorials. I like to read editorial pieces and commentaries because they give a perspective, and you can agree or disagree with the perspective. Right. And you can always tell that an editor or editorial piece or a commentary piece or an opinion piece, what is the writer's intention and his background. So he may be liberal and therefore give a more liberal take on this issue, or he may be conservative. So that's why when I was in school, I learned the concept of content analysis. All right, you are trained to understand the writing or the writer or the author behind his piece of work.
To think not only about the fact, but the environment in which this fact, context of this fact.
Yes, you're right, Max. Nice. The context of information is very important because no information or data comes in isolation. You make sense of it only when you link it to the larger picture. Right. And this is also about strategy management.
How many days or weeks per annum you go for vacation, you disconnect from everything, from like all your tasks?
I think a good healthy leave would be away from office would be between 25 to 30 days a year, where you recharge, and that's where I completely disconnect myself from the workplace. But that doesn't mean I'm not thinking about work. So because sometimes the best times to think about work or how to improve a particular project is usually when you're on vacation. Right. Because your mind is open and you can reflect even more.
What places do you prefer to visit in such?
Because I love nature, and therefore usually I'm biased towards visiting a city or country where there's a lot of nature around. It could be flora and fauna, the mountains, the scenery. That's more important to me than a city urban setting.
Yeah, because we have city here. Very dynamic, right?
Concrete jungle. I need the real jungle.
Okay. How many hours of sleep do you have on average?
Typically, I make sure that I have 7 hours of sleep. But thankfully, I have a biological clock that tells me that I need to wake up at a certain time and sleep at a certain time. So that really helps. And I feel that has contributed to my health.
What about health? How do you recharge it? How do you, maybe you do some sports, some exercises?
Yeah. For me, reading is also important because reading is, to me, a brain exercise. You need to exercise your brains. Okay. Sometimes I look at puzzles and quizzes to just make sure that I'm sharp and focused. I do exercise. I do not a particular sport, but just gym to do some weights, to do some running. That's about it.
What is happiness for you? What is unhappiness for you?
Happiness for me is when I feel that happiness comes internally based on the fact that I'm at peace with myself and I'm able to make others happy around me when they're down, and that's the ultimate happiness I feel. Unhappiness to me is when I see injustice. I get very upset when I see someone being ill-treated or abused for no reason.
Right.
And this is also because of my upbringing that I've been told to value human relationships or humans no matter their background.
What is success for you?
Success to me is when I'm able to give back to society, to give back to my colleagues, my wisdom, my advice, my mentorship and my coaching. So I'm in a position to do that, and that is the most successful quality that I feel is important.
Who has been the biggest influence on you in life?
I would say two persons. One, of course, is my late father, who passed away when I was 5, and even before 5, I learned so much from him, as I can remember. And of course, my beloved mother. So, she taught me a lot about the values of independence, sacrifice, having a certain competitive spirit, and also compassion to others.
What would you recommend to those people who want to become successful entrepreneurs? Because you've been dealing with Dubai SMEs, you know how it works here. So what would be your recommendation?
Well, good question, because I've always tried to determine the 4 or 5 questions that I need to ask an entrepreneur before he starts a business.
Yeah.
In my last 20 years, I got many individuals from different backgrounds who want to start a business. Some of them from the corporate background, they are earning big salaries, they are happy as a salaryman or salarywoman. They have a stable income. To young students who just graduated from their masters or bachelors, and each of them have a different take on what entrepreneurship is. And I developed kind of like 4 or 5 questions to actually ask an entrepreneur before he wants to embark on a business.
Right.
So the first question I ask them is this business that they are pursuing coming from the heart? Because it's about passion.
Right.
Second question I always ask them is, do they have the support of their family and close relatives? The third thing is, are they willing to queue up for their license, to buy something, to meet a supplier, and just join the queue as an ordinary person? All right. Third, are they willing to give up their monthly income to start a business? All right. And fourth, the fifth question is, if the business fails, do they have a plan B? Yeah. So these are the kind of like 5 questions. I tell them to reflect over 1 week and then come back to me.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I like.
Because people always want to rush into business without thinking. So these 5 questions will help them to think before they plunge. Many of them, I tell them that I'd rather you stay to your current job. It may be boring, it may be not what you want to do, but it pays your bills. And that's paying your bills and not getting into debt is more important than taking the risk, not knowing when your income will come from your business. So you have to decide, and you have family to support and feed. Maybe having a boring career is much better. I tell them that because I've seen many made the wrong decision, and they are either packing their bags, leaving Dubai, or they are just demoralized and suffering. So, and I tell them to find themselves first before they make that plunge. And many of them who did not start business are thanking me, and many of them who started business and failed are thanking me, and many who started business and prospered are thanking me as well. So the advice that you give sometimes it depends on how the person takes it. So I tell them that I don't prescribe, I just ask the questions and you reflect. and you find your answers. Not I don't find answers for you. I just ask the questions, and you find your own answers. That's my how I advise entrepreneurs.
So I would say also that to start a business, some people need to earn to save some money, and whenever some people are coming to us, for example, and asking, should I start or not, we're telling, are you sure that for the next 3 months you will be able to support yourself and family? If you say yes, yeah, you can try. But still, you need to think about what you will do. Because to get the license to rent an office, to print business cards, is not a business. Business in how you get customer, what your product will be, how you will market your product, how you will attract your first 100 customers. If you know how to answer these 4 questions, then only you can think about renting office, getting license and everything like that. But if you think that business is fancy office and a suit and a car, this is not it. So yeah, before starting business, make sure you have enough savings for another 3 months to come. Even if you don't, like, your income will be 0. You should be able to support
I totally
yourself.
agree. In fact, I will add this question to my list of questions. I learned something from you. Yeah, and just to add, another important point is that before you start a business, always remember that you need to invest your own monies.
Right.
Because that when you put in your own money, as they call it, sweat money, you'll be more committed, and even future investors will respect that. That you use your own money to start a business.
Do you think you need an education to start business?
It depends. For me, there are a lot of successful businessmen without education. I know a lot of examples in Singapore, the past generation who had basic education. I would say no education.
We're talking about business education.
No, basic school education, but were able to be street smart and learn on the ropes and learn the hard way to develop their business instincts. If you are starting a professional business, for example, if you want to start an accounting business or architectural business, definitely you need to have a basic education in finance and accounting.
Yeah, or a lawyer, for example, right? Sorry? Or a lawyer, if you want to, a lawyer firm.
Right. If you want to start up a big legal firm, you need to have a legal background. Right? So there are certain businesses that depends on the profession that you are, but a vast majority of businessmen I know, because they are so successful, it's only after they are successful then they went to MBA school. There are a lot of them, they decided that they have a story to tell, they want to go to MBA school to just affirm the knowledge that they have done in the last 10 years in setting up business is right, and to network. So the conclusion is that it depends on the type of business that this individual is trying to develop. But I would say that a vast majority of successful businessmen did not have a formal education, and they are doing so well now. It tells you that education is important but not sufficient for success.
So I also like to share the story of one guy. It's absolutely a true story. It was my early entrepreneurship years, and the guy who graduated from MBA, from very well-known MBA, he came to me and asked, "Okay, Max, how should I start my business? What should I do?" I was like, "Man, you were in MBA, like you are supposed to tell me what to do for me to run a company." But this was for me like an insight at that point, that to be an entrepreneur, to be a businessman, you do not necessarily need to have business education, because some people think, oh, I want to start business but I don't have education, oh, I need to save money for the MBA. They go to online and look at these prices of the MBA programs, they say, oh, I will never get it. But like MBA is not a ticket for you, because I have friends also who went to US, to Europe, who have a very good degrees in MBA, but still they still have not started any business yet, and they are still thinking, or they are not courageous enough to.
Yeah, so I mean, as in all things, I would say that education is just an enabler. You need to apply the knowledge. So for me, I applied it in the workplace, I applied it in analyzing people. Some people have go through education, maybe as an enabler to give them more wisdom or more knowledge to do the things they want to do and to expose themselves. But whether that leads to them to make a decision to start a business is a different decision altogether. It requires a lot of soul-searching, guts, risk-taking, instincts that no textbook can tell you.
You said about reading. Do you love reading? How many books do you read per
I used to read a lot of physical books, but now I read a lot online. Yeah, so I can spend hours just on the tablet or computer just to read something. Less tablet. I used to have a tablet, but more on the notebook or computer. Yeah.
Do you watch YouTube channels? And what channels do you usually watch?
Well, I usually watch news channels, so I'm really biased towards for example, the BBC News, World News. If it's Singapore, it's the Channel News Asia. So I'm not a big fan of watching satellite TV or TV programs or action movie programs. I'm more a viewer of news, real-time news. Yes.
All right. What are the 3 books that have influenced you the most?
Okay, 3 books. The book written by our late Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. One is the sequel. The one is called From Third World to First, where he talks about how you build a country and build a government. And then the second sequel is how you execute, the Singapore story, the different challenges. So 2 books. The third book is I like. It's more a reference book. It's called Talent Management. It's written by Dorothy Berger and Lance Berger. So they write about talent management in every imaginable context in public and private sector. So that's like the Bible for me for talent management.
Nice.
Yeah.
I will read it as well.
I'll definitely pass you the book.
All right. Your best advice to entrepreneurs?
My best advice to entrepreneurs is to make sure that they are ready to be a business, to take the risk. All right, that they know what they're getting into. Right. Because the business world is an open-ended book. It depends on where you want to go. Make sure that you have something valuable to offer to your customers. Make sure that you really want to develop your business as a passion, as a model, and as you grow, make sure you hire the right people. And therefore, I always equate entrepreneurial growth of the company to the hiring of the right minds to run the business. And therefore, the kind of talent that you want to hire and develop to run your business. Because as an entrepreneur, one of the key success factors I look at entrepreneurs as they grow is that they have developed the ability to spot talent. If they can spot talent and develop talent, I would say that is something that entrepreneur has an edge, a competitive edge against other entrepreneurs.
3 biggest events in the UAE you would recommend anyone to attend, or a businessman to attend, or future potential entrepreneur to attend? What are these 3 biggest events?
Yeah, so I've attended a lot of events in Dubai for the last 7 to 10 years, but I think 3 events which I always felt that I have to go every year was the GITEX Technology Week, organized by Dubai World Trade Center, the annual blockchain conference, stroke IoT, and the third one is the manufacturing conference that Dubai government with a partner usually organizes. The reason is that because these 3 conferences always show me the new trends and developments that businesses are learning about. So it's a frontier for me.
All right, now we are coming to hot seat questions. I ask the question. Alexander have to answer them very quickly, but not necessarily in 1 word or 2 words. You can expand your answer, but quickly. All right? Dubai or Singapore?
Both. Why?
Yeah. Why?
Well, for Dubai, the reasons of is quite different. It's more entrepreneurial, more opportunistic, and I enjoy that kind of environment. For Singapore, it's more because of my childhood, the reason why I have my connections, my social connections, and my upbringing and my values. So both cities are equally important to me.
Who is the best businessman in the history of the world?
In my mind, he may be a cliche, but I think Bill Gates is, to me, the most inspiring businessman because post his business, he has set up the whole philanthropy movement of giving back to society.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the most noble thing a businessman can do.
What is the most unbelievable request you have ever received?
The most unbelievable request I think I came across in Singapore is when my neighbor asked me to bake a cake for his dog.
Oh, really?
It was an unusual request when I was in my teenage years, so I will never forget that the institution where I said, "Oh, please," because
So was it a successful story?
yeah, it was a success story because I didn't tell you that part of my hobbies, I love to cook and I love to bake.
Really?
Yes, I baked a lot of cakes for myself and for my neighbors. So when I was young, my mother taught me to cook, and as part of survival, and my neighbors got to know it, and she said, "Oh, can you bake a cake for my dog's birthday?" So that was a very unusual request.
Which is the best city in the UAE?
Dubai, of course.
The worst ever decision you made in business or in life?
I think the worst decision I've made in life was to listen too much to a financial advisor. I listened to him and I released some funds for him to manage, but I didn't do my due diligence on him.
Right.
Yeah, but so far to this day it is working out okay, but there were painful moments that I made a wrong decision.
What was the happiest moment in your life?
The happiest moment in my life was when I was given a management position in the company. For the first time, the CEO trusted me to manage a team. And that was a wonderful experience. It was scary, but it was the most wonderful experience because that set the tone for my career for the next 20 years.
Yeah. What is happiness for you? What is unhappiness for you?
Happiness for me is when I feel that happiness comes internally based on the fact that I'm at peace with myself and I'm able to make others happy around me when they're down, and that's the ultimate happiness I feel. Unhappiness to me is when I see injustice. I get very upset when I see someone being ill-treated or abused for no reason. And this is also because of my upbringing that I've been told to value human relationships or humans no matter their background.
What is success for you?
Success to me is when I'm able to give back to society, to give back to my colleagues, my wisdom, my advice, my mentorship and my coaching. So I'm in a position to do that, and that is the most successful quality that I feel is important.
What is your biggest dream?
My biggest dream is to continue working in a different capacity, in a larger role, where I can bring together the best team. Not to make a profit. Profit could be one of them, but to develop them so that they can develop the next generation.
Right. You know many businessmen and entrepreneurs. Who do you think will be worth meeting and sharing his or her story with our audience for us to spot this person and ask him to share his story, in your opinion?
In my opinion, the source of all this, I will be biased to say that the concept or the program that I did for SME 100, there are a lot of CEOs here in the book.
Yeah.
There are 3 cycles, so there are more than like almost 300 CEOs to choose from.
Yeah.
I would suggest that all of them have a story to tell, and all of them are equal candidates for you to interview.
Okay, I got it. So we have like a list now.
Yeah. But don't forget Michael Lahiani. Don't forget Mana.
Yeah.
And his partner Susie Croft, who set up the business which I mentioned to you.
Yeah.
Those 2 are quite inspiring stories, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs in Dubai can take a lesson or 2 from them.
Nice, very good. Could you please give us recommendation how we can spot a talent, how we can hire a great team, what we should do to make our company prosper in terms of creating a great team that will do the product?
My take is that the entrepreneur, the head of the company, should develop his own skills in hiring the talent, or in actually identifying the requirements of what he needs.
Right.
All right, and he may consult a HR consultant or an advisor to just develop the idea further of what that talent is. All right, don't forget, when you're hiring a talent, you're also making a bet. You're also taking a risk on that talent. And as I mentioned to you, there's good and bad talent. It's how that CEO or that business perceives what is required for that talent. So a bad talent could be good for another company, and a good talent may be bad for another company.
Yeah.
So the trick of the trade in talent management or identifying talent is to hire someone who can do a better job than you as a CEO in a different field. For example, not many entrepreneurs, or not as many entrepreneurs are good at financial management or investment management. They may be good at making decisions about the market, but they may not be so savvy in the financial side of things. So you need to hire someone who is good in financial management and investment.
Yeah.
The trick of the trade is in talent management, once you hire them, you give them the tools, you give them the incentive, and you give them the space to develop his or her role in that company. Right. Secondly, talent is not just about spotting talent. You need to create the talent system in your company, the rewards, the values, and you need to create a talent system that is meritocratic based. Means whoever does the best performance should be rewarded. And again, there are 2 types of talent. There's a professional talent, what I call the expert talent, versus the leadership talent. So in your company, you must spot different types of talent.
Right.
A person maybe have leadership qualities, but may not be so good at management, but he's good at bringing new business for the company. So you should give him a certain career or development path. A person may be very good at financial management, so good that you cannot do without him or her, and you must give him a different professional path. But they may not be good at leadership. So in a CEO's role is actually very challenging. You need to find the ability, a capacity to develop different types of talent. All right, from the lowest level to the most senior level. So talent is something that I'm very passionate about, because I always tell the CEO, don't hire talent equally at that one level. You're going to fail, because you need to have talents of varying degrees. Some can lead, some can develop their project skills, some can develop markets, some can manage people. Your role as a CEO is to be the conductor of an orchestra, bringing out the best, combining the best to create the most successful business outcome for your company.
Okay guys, so let's try to do something like that. If you write a comment under this video saying what is your idea about doing business, write it under the video. We will look with Alexander at the results and the one who will be the most interesting will have a 1-hour consulting session with Alexander.
I would say more mentoring or advisory session.
Yeah,
yes.
advisory session.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, why not? Yes, I'm very happy to do that.
All right, this was Alexandar Williams, one of the most influential visionaries of the UAE. Thank you for coming and for joining us.
You're most welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get the #1 step-by-step guide on how to become your own boss in the UAE. You will learn how to start your own business in the UAE. Just click the link in the description below this video and follow this link. This is your time to start. Click the link below this video. Bam!